All right, I think we're live. Well, welcome everyone to our Wheaton Academy Q&A session. It's good to see everyone. Thank you all for joining me today. It's good to see everybody. We'll wait a few more minutes to get officially started while some people kind of sign in here, but it's good to see a couple already here, so welcome. I love this part of these events. You can kind of see who shows up, but it's very fun. So Chris, what'd you do to stay busy today? What was your day like?
Today was a pretty busy day on the math side, being the math department head and working with Mrs. Hackett, working with some students on AP Calculus, getting some questions answered, and my advanced pre-calculus students, lots of questions as well.
Wow, how is AP Calculus going with e-learning? That's crazy to me. I don't think I would do well with that in person, let alone online. Is it going okay?
It is. It's going great. Surprisingly, for math, it's going really smoothly.
That's awesome. That's great.
I've been in Chris's room. I've seen him teach math, and he is a pro. It's amazing. So I have no doubt he's doing great.
That's awesome. Nate, what did you do today to stay occupied and busy?
Today was a lot of answering questions day. It was, hey, you're working on this, and what questions do you have? So it was, hey, Mr. Lehman, what about this? What about that? And so it was sort of continually like, okay, look at this next, and then do this. And the stuff that would kind of normally happen in class, but over the computer. So it's kind of normal, kind of.
Yes, as normal as it can be.
Yeah.
That's good. Awesome. Well, I think we can go ahead and get started. We've got a couple more people signing in here, but we'll get them caught up as we jump in. So really the purpose of today is just to offer some really incredible people from Wheaton Academy who can answer some questions. And we had a couple questions kind of pre-submitted, and then I'm sure as the night unfolds, some more questions will come up too. So I just want to make sure our attendees see that there's a chat option, a question box within your portal here with GoToWebinar that allows you to do some questions in real time. So go ahead and type those as you're listening. And then also there's some handouts throughout the downloads. There's 3 things that we typically give our families who tour and kind of meet us for the first time. We thought we'd give them some digital handouts so they can at least see some of that here tonight. So with that, I'd love to do kind of some introductions. So if we could kind of go around and introduce yourselves, and maybe in your introduction, maybe mention like your favorite opportunity that students have at Wheaton Academy. So yeah, Lehman, you want to start with us?
Sure. My name is Nate Lehman. I am the Social Studies Department head, and so I teach all kinds of social studies classes, everything from government to freshman inquiry to we have art history. We have a lot of options. It's great. But Brittany, you had mentioned opportunities, and I think one of the opportunities that I love about WA is all of the co-curriculars, from clubs that are totally optional, come when you can, to travel opportunities from Winterim, like domestically and even internationally. I think the range of options gives students a wide set of opportunities, chances, I've said that word a lot, to figure out like, hey, who am I? Like, I'm growing up a lot and I'm gonna go to university next or whatever, and how do I be my full true self in the next phase? And there's lots of chances to figure that out in a way that has support and doesn't leave you off on your island floundering. So I think it's all of those sort of things, everything from clubs to, international mission trips and things like that.
That's great. Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it. Awesome. Chris, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Chris Walensky. I am the math department head here at Wheaton Academy. I've been teaching here for 16 years, and I'm a graduate of Wheaton Academy. So it's been quite an experience for me to come full circle and be able to teach here at Wheaton Academy. Currently teach AP Calculus and Advanced Pre-Calculus, and have taught pretty much every math class in the book outside of our geometry curriculum here. In terms of unique opportunity, I would say about Wheaton Academy, as Nate mentioned, the co-curriculars, but the number of opportunities that students have, not just being latched into one area, but the fact that they have curriculars at the same time. And I'm also the track and cross country coach. So I work with balancing out with the different student schedules and giving them the opportunity to do many different things. So that's what I love about Wheaton Academy, the number of things that can be done.
Great. Thank you, Chris. You are absolutely a Wheaton Academy legend with your time and being alumni. I love that. Cool. Thanks. Shackelford, do you want to jump in next?
Yeah, I'm Carol Shackelford. We have a daughter that's a sophomore right now and a son that just graduated last year, and then our other daughter graduated in 2016. But I'm also an alumni as well. I graduated in 91. So it's been a part of our family in many ways. But I think an opportunity that we've appreciated as a family, and I know our kids have benefited, is we were host parents in the international program that Wheaton Academy offers, and that just brought such a richness to our lives and to our kids' lives. And we still, like today, we got a text from our hosts or our son who is in South Korea often, but just today he sent us a message. So that's something that Wheaton Academy offers that's really super unique.
I'm Nathan Shackelford, and Carol has mentioned our kids attending the school, and I think the relationships our kids have with their teachers is the opportunity that's most important for us. I remember our oldest daughter's first year at WA. She over Christmas break, we were saying, "Do you miss your friends? You know, how are you feeling?" Blah blah, and she said, "I really just miss my teachers." And so I know that having our kids have godly adults who are interested in them, just spend time with them and care about them, makes our job as parents much easier, and it's rich for our kids. And I can say that, you know, our kids, we've had Penny in Chris's class, we've had Simon on Chris's teams, and then all three of our kids have had Nate as a teacher. And so just here in this little webinar is part of our experience that's been really positive.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And Emma, you want to round us off?
Yeah, my name is Emma Goebel, and I'm a senior currently at Wheaton Academy. And when I think of opportunity at Wheaton Academy, I immediately think of like where I've grown the most. And for me, that's been like the Bible classes. I think specifically philosophy class. I look back on my first semester of philosophy class, and I just saw myself like at the beginning of the semester and the end of the semester. I just feel like I view the whole, like the world in like a really different way. And to have that in like my high school experience is cool, because I feel like that's something that people don't always get like kind of this early in their life, and a safe place to do that, to ask questions. So personally, that has been an opportunity that I've really enjoyed to kind of take a hold of and run with, and it's been pretty fruitful for me. So.
Great, it's awesome. Yeah, our that philosophy and theology class is often a highlight of student senior years. It kind of culminates all that kind of biblical worldview training to a real launching place to get you ready for your next stage. So that's great. I love that. Cool. Well, I thought I'd thank you for those introductions. I thought we'd dive in, and I'll actually start a little bit with just some basic kind of Wheaton Academy questions for those of our attendees that are maybe new or not as familiar with our school. I thought I'd start with some of those basic questions about our school. So one was where Wheaton Academy is located. We're in West Chicago, Illinois. So right off kind of 59 and 64 where those intersect. We're real close to that. Within that, we've got a lot of different students kind of represented in our student body, because we do pull from a lot of different areas. In fact, there's about 60 different zip codes represented in our student body. which is made up of about 660 students. So we're just high school, 9th through 12th grade, and we've got lots of different classes, which I'm sure will come up here tonight. But one question that was asked was the average class size, which is about 18 students is about average. Before this role in admissions, I taught English at Wheaton Academy for about 6 years. I think my smallest class was like 12, and then one of my bigger classes was about 24. So I personally experienced that average class size. Another question was about middle schools and churches that our students come from. Our middle school draw in that typical freshman class is about 45 different middle schools, which is kind of hard to imagine, but it is. We've got a lot of different middle schools represented in our each freshman class, which again is about 160, 165 students. I would say of those middle schools, about 60% of our incoming freshmen come from another private school. About 30% come from a public school, which I think that was you, Emma. You came from a public school before Wheaton Academy. Yeah. And then 10% are homeschooled, which was the Shackelford students' experience before Wheaton Academy. And then the last question that we had that was just kind of overall was just about students driving to campus and if we provided any transportation. We have enough parking spots for really anyone with a license to be able to drive and park at school if they'd like. We don't offer any sort of like busing as a school, but we have a pretty substantial carpool network that we can help families with our directory kind of pair up in similar zip codes and areas to kind of help at least those couple first years kind of ease the burden of the drop off and the pickup in the morning. So although we don't provide official transportation, there's a lot of different families from a lot of different areas that I'm sure would love to help and share that driving. So yeah. So there's also, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a handout in your download section that specifically is our Ready, Set, Go booklet that just gives an overview of Wheaton Academy, and that particular download has some more about those kind of basic facts. But if you'd like to peruse that more, I'd encourage you to download that while we're talking. So moving on to our next question, which I love, is I'll turn it over to you guys, enough from me, is just to describe what you think is unique about Wheaton Academy. Families have a lot of different school choices that they can choose for their kind of incoming freshmen or incoming transfer students. So I'd love from your various vantage points just to describe what you think sets Wheaton Academy apart and makes it a unique place to go to high school.
Yeah, I'll jump in to start off with this. And one of the things that I think about is the daily structure of Wheaton Academy plus the yearly Wheaton Academy calendar. And from the daily side of things, I think about advisory groups. Advisory groups here at Wheaton Academy are small groups of between 10 and 12 students, which are smaller than a class size, but we as teachers get to know these students at a deeper level. We cover some other topics we might not cover in the classroom. And that's one of the things I really think is unique about Wheaton Academy, our advisory curriculum where we get to know students at a deeper level. But also I like the idea of the Wheaton Academy calendar in terms of all the different opportunities that there are. In my mind, I think, okay, first day of school, that's a great milestone. But then we hit homecoming. I think about our Christmas concert. I think about Mr. Wah, which is a talent show that our seniors put on. I just have these markers throughout the year that I get excited to work with students in and see them perform in. And that's really just the highlight about how Wheaton Academy is so unique. The advisory program, but also the school calendar.
It's awesome. Thanks, Chris. It's great.
Something like, oh, sorry, Carol, go ahead.
I'm going to just share my own experience. When I transferred to Wheaton Academy way back when, I had come from public school to a private school. I had never had that experience before. And I remember being so struck with how, just how like interested people were, and they didn't necessarily look at the way you looked, but just like who you were as a person and just being a part of a community where you felt really accepted. And that was very encouraging to me as a high school kid, because it's, you know, let's face it, a hard time in a teenager's life. And I was transferring, so I felt like it could be a little awkward and a little difficult, but it was probably the best experience I had. And I'm so happy to say that I truly believe my kids had that same kind of experience that I had, and they were lucky enough to have 4 years of that experience. Obviously, teenagers are going to go through roller coasters of emotions and highs and lows and everything, but in the end, there's this community of teachers and good friends that really do care about my kids. And that makes me feel so grateful. And I can relate to them because I had that same experience. So that's just my 2 bits.
Great, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, Nate, did you want to share?
Yeah, I would say that the range of opportunities and choices academically is really unique and valuable. Emma mentioned the philosophy class, but even as a freshman, getting some worldview ideas that are layered in and scaffolded from freshman year all the way to senior year to be able to take that philosophy class that she mentioned, that really helps our students choose the classes that best fit them at all levels and all paces of learning, so that they can be successful and launch, as you said, into their next chapter beyond law, whatever that is. And that's been a deliberate and ongoing effort on our part, and I'm excited to see that only grow, honestly, with this more online things that are happening currently, because everybody knows what they're good at, but you never know what you might be good at. And those different academic options help you figure out what that could be, because you might think, well, I'm not so much of a whatever kind of person, and then you get into that class and you're like, oh, that really is interesting and lights me up, and I get excited and I feel empowered and all of those things. So the academic options that have grown, and I'm sure will continue to grow, make me really excited about what this school has. For example, we even have some more specific things like a master's program, which is like a STEM program. My son goes to a STEM school. So that kind of thing curricularly, as a teacher, makes me excited. And as someone who has younger kids who are not in high school yet, makes me excited for what they may experience when it's their turn to come.
Great. They posted an article today on our website, or maybe it was the Wheaton Academy Facebook, about how some of our students are using those 3D printers to make the protective masks for local healthcare workers, and it's really cool. I mean, we'll put the link to that article in the chat, but I was with you, Nate. I think it was cool to see how even in this time where we can't really access that makerspace ideal lab, that they brought the 3D printers home and kind of found a way to be resourceful and really apply what they're learning to a very immediate and real need.
And that's a lot to do with the teacher who runs that. Josh Burek is a good example of people who's like, oh, you want to try this? I will help you figure out how to do this thing. I don't know how to do it. You don't know how to do it, but we can together be what I call figure it outers. And there's a lot of teachers like that. And that's a perfect example. Josh is a great example of people who are like, oh, well, yes, let's try that. Let's figure out how to do that. And it just, that kind of thing sticks forever with a person, no matter how old they are. So of course, let's do that. And I love that Josh is already on it. That's perfect.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks. Anything else you guys want to mention about kind of what makes Wheaton Academy unique?
I just wanted to add that I came from public school, like you mentioned, and I think something that struck me was just that feeling of like being known when you walk through the hallways. Like I feel like I look at my teachers and faculty members like in the eye, and they'll be like, "Hi, Emma, how are you?" And I know that like they actually mean it when they say that, even just passing in the hallway. And something I like to look back on as a senior now, when I was a freshman, I came in, and I remember my mom was scared to like pick me up from school because she was like, I think one person going in, she was like, okay, Emma, like, how was your day? And she said that like I talked about my teachers like they were my best friends. I was like, the teachers were awesome. Like I love them. And that's like the only thing I talked about. Like I didn't talk about how like I had like I don't even know who I sat with at lunch. That's what she was worried about. But I was just like, my teachers were awesome. And so I think just even comparing that to public school, it's just public school is great, but the teachers here have become like my mentors and my best friends now, which is cool to look back on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I always enjoy when I pick our daughter up. We live about a half an hour away from the school, and I really miss our time because we're home right now learning. But her chatting, and most of it, she goes through her schedule and talks about all of her teachers and all of the great things that happened, and maybe not so great things that have happened, but it's just so fun to hear, just like how Emma mentioned, talking about her teachers, it's great.
That's awesome. That's great. That's great. Well, I do want to just again remind our participants, if they have any more questions, keep them coming in the chat option or the question box. But one question that came up really that piggybacks off of really what we were mentioning is just describing the Wheaton Academy community. It's pretty highly relational, and you really kind of feel known there. Anything else you guys want to add about things you appreciate about the Wheaton Academy community?
I'll say something because I'm a teacher myself, and it's been very easy for me to connect with the teachers at Wheaton Academy as colleagues in the field of teaching. I've been friends with Nate Lehman for 8 years or so because we both love art history and both teach it. And then Matt Hockett teaches video, and I asked him a question about 3 weeks ago about broadcasting and things like that, and he took the time to create like 3 tutorial videos just for me. And so like, I just know the community is all about sharing and helping and just collaborating. And so even as a teacher in the public school system, I'm already collaborating with the Wheaton Academy teachers, and it makes me feel like I'm part of something also.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, Matt Hackett has taken his video classes to a new level in this time. So you were wise to reach out to him. So yeah, they have a lower level in their home, and his whole basement floor is just like a new production studio because he's live streaming chapel for us, principal announcements often. He's got his Watch TV class that they do a weekly news show, sport broadcasting class. He's being creative, his other video classes, and we did a coffee house live the other night. So he's making it work.
Yeah, he's really busy right now.
Yeah.
Well, and yes, just right now, currently, what's so unique about Wheaton Academy is how you guys have handled this whole e-learning thing. Honestly, it's been, as parents, we've been just blown away with how teachers are reaching out to the kids and having the chapel and the virtual coffee house and all of that, just still making that connection and those relationships. It's so incredibly evident, and we're incredibly impressed by that. So hopefully we don't have to do this again, but
Amen. Amen. We're ready if we do, but let's hope we don't.
right.
That's great. I love it. Well, good. Well, anything else about the Wheaton Academy community? And then we have a more specific question about it, but anything in general you guys want to talk about?
It's rich. It's one of the things that is unique and just lovely. Every day is a pleasure to get up and be at WA. It's never like, I have to go. It's always like, this is the place and it's good. Even the days that are super busy and, frantic are always good because of the community, the people, the Emmas that walk through the halls. Hey, Mr. Lehman, and the colleagues like Chris that I get to see, and the supportive parents. So it's always pleasant. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
I love how people will support you in all the different scenarios we run into, because our lives are all so different, but yet, as Emma mentioned, when people say hi to you in the hallway, it just brings a smile to your face. Or in the teacher workroom, being able to collaborate and talk with your colleagues, interacting with parents, it's really just a blessing with the whole community overall.
Great. I always loved when we go off campus, like a field trip or a trip or something, and other people get to interact with our normal, our classes, our teams, our groups. I mean, just time and time again, I would get feedback like, this was just an easy group to host, or your kids are so nice, or, when we had shadow days, and a lot of the 8th grade perspective, everyone's just so nice here. It's kind of nice hearing that, but I'm never surprised. I'm never surprised at the feedback we get when we're kind of out and about. So cool. Well, one question kind of specifically about community that came in is talking about kind of diversity within Wheaton Academy, and if Wheaton Academy is a diverse place. I know I started a little bit about some of the facts, honestly, at the beginning of this, of all the different kind of things and zip codes and churches and middle schools that are represented at Wheaton Academy. But I'd love to kind of hear from your perspective how you would answer kind of the diversity question about Wheaton Academy.
Well, I'll jump in. I lived part of my life overseas, and the international student population has become one of the corner pieces of our school. From originally, I want to say 8 students 12 years ago, to now there's right around 60, and they're from lots and lots of places. And that kind of perspective and worldview and belief system and student and parent roles, all of that shows up in this one particular place, and you get to meet people right where they're at, and know them and help them fit and help them learn. So that kind of intentional piece, because that doesn't happen by accident. That's a really, really strategic, purposeful part of the WA school, is unique and lovely, and is one of my favorite parts, because I lived my life in other places besides the United States. So I like to see that. It's like, oh, you're a little bit of home from over there. So there's this sense of a global community, even in this little tiny space in the suburbs of Chicago.
It's great. It's great.
We've been at WA since 2012. Our daughter was a freshman that school year, and we were discussing this the other night. We feel like it's definitely, we can always do better. I feel like diversity always can be improved upon or whatever, but I do feel like it has definitely increased. Just seeing international students, but then just the student population that lives here in this area, which makes us happy to see that, as well as teachers, as diversity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We in the freshman class this year, we had about 1 in 3 students come from, kind of represent a diverse background in terms of ethnicity. And although a portion of that are international students, 24% of that number came from our day students, and so that's something that is an intentional effort, like you were mentioning, Carol, in the last kind of 10 years or so, really making sure Wheaton Academy reflects the kingdom of God in every sense, whether that's, different ethnicities, or even socioeconomic status, or all different things, that making sure that we, as best we can on this side of heaven, represent how God's designed community. In fact, I don't know if anyone wants to speak to kind of our Kingdom Community Initiative that started. We kind of put language to some of the things that we value about 4 or 5 years ago now. Anyone want to kind of jump in and explain what that is?
I can try my best.
Sure.
I'm not like a part of it, I would say, but it's kind of this initiative where these group of students, I think led by a teacher, kind of come together and talk about those topics that are sometimes like shied away from, or like taboo, if you will. And I think that's been really cool for the community, because even I feel like because of that Kingdom Community group and kids who are part of it in my classes, like comes to mind in my English class in modern literature. We had like a group discussion, and we just talked about like, yeah, like social economic like status and how that differs. And then we had like obviously some like debate, and it was just really interesting to talk about those topics that kind of are sometimes hard to talk about because we don't talk about them. And it's a safe place to talk about them. And I think it kind of grew all of our perspectives a lot. It's been cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Emma. I love that. Yeah, anyone else want to chime in on that or move on to our next question?
I would just add that Emma is right in naming it as intentional, and that sometimes it's hard questions, like she said, and as Carol mentioned, it's something you can always improve on, but it is very a deliberate choice to not be a school that just has its head in its sand, in the sand, and is like, well, we're just going to do what we do because this is what we do. It's more open-eyed and see the whole world and a proactive way to be a place for all kinds of people. And there's a lot of schools where that just happens. There's a lot of schools where that never happens. And so we want to be the kind of place that creates it because we can, because we're empowered by the Lord with gifts to create a place where there's a space for all sorts of people.
It's great. It's great. Thanks, Nate. Thanks. Well, moving on to a couple other questions that have come in. One question is about enrollment and if it's increased at all over the years. So I'm happy to jump in and answer this, but anyone want to make a comment at all about enrollment? It's kind of my lane with admissions, but yeah, okay, I'll jump in. So really, I would say maybe about 10 years ago or so, the school settled on being a school that has 660 students and really no more than that. And so that was kind of where we capped enrollment. And really for the past 2 or 3 years since I've been in admissions, at least from my perspective, I've been in the role about 3 years, we've ended each school year with a full school. In fact, we've had the past couple summers to really use a waiting list for students who have expressed interest in coming. And I hate that part. It's like the worst part of my job is meeting awesome families who just want to come to Wheaton Academy and then we don't have space for them. So really our enrollment in a lot of ways is capped, and really there's not a ton of conversation right now for a lot of growth. But some of that's been really kind of strategic, just from that ideal school size where we've got those small class sizes, but also able to offer some of those big school amenities where there is, as we mentioned tonight, just a lot of opportunities in that regard. So another question was students that go off to 4-year universities, which is our majority of our students. I think it's over 90% go off to a 4-year college. And maybe Emma, do you want to talk a little bit about the different schools that some of your friends are going off to?
Yeah, it's super interesting because you have like a wide range of like, got some community college, small Christian, a handful of small Christian. I'm going to a small Christian college. And then we've got like some big schools like Arizona State and University of Iowa. It's really interesting just to see like where everyone's fitting in and where people desire to go. So they go there because it fits them, and it's, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's always interesting to see where students kind of end up. Shackelford, do you want to talk at all about your daughter's kind of and son's college experience thus far?
Yeah, sure. We've had 2 kids graduate from Wheaton Academy in the last several years, and our oldest is just now graduating from Wheaton College. And she looked at other schools, and it was strange, but she ended up finding that the best fit for her was right here in this area. And we've been glad to have her nearby, and it's been great. And then our son has kind of gone a totally different direction. He went to college in Canada on the West Coast, so he was quite far away, but he's pretty adventurous, and that's been a good fit for him too. So they both found places. I would say they both ended up going to smaller Christian schools. but they've both been really prepared for where they were going, and have referenced their Wheaton Academy experience many times as the credit for their successes and their comfort level in college. And so we're really excited for them. And when we started at Wheaton Academy, that was one of our goals, was that they would be fully ready for college and confident in what they could do.
Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you. My Trish Main, who's the English department head, who I worked under when I was a teacher, she always had a saying that I loved. Like, we care not only about getting students into college, but getting out of college well. And so, it's not just the grades, it's that college readiness skills and the thinking and the independence and the self-management and those types of things that in a lot of ways we leaned into more, just to get students equipped and ready. So that way college is a time where they are thriving and not, experiencing otherwise.
Yeah, without the focus on always having to get the best of grades, but to actually be able to manage your time. And, and I feel like Wheaton Academy really helped our kids in that situation. They weren't completely shocked,
Sure. It's great. That's great. Cool. Any other notes about colleges or college readiness that you want to mention, or okay to move on? Okay, great. Well, one question again, this might be more for me, but there was a question about opportunities to experience the school even in this current time where we're kind of at the stay-at-home order. So really these Q&As are one way of just kind of interacting at least a little bit with you. We also are having digital kind of student hangouts now every Friday at 2 p.m. where we have 5 or 6 of our Wheaton Academy students going to jump on a Zoom call with me. And then if any of your kind of students want to join, you're welcome. Our first one is tomorrow. And then we also have some virtual tours that we have a video of me kind of walking around campus and kind of explaining each space. So we can maybe send some links in the chat to each of those experiences. So you're welcome to join us for more of these Q&As, which are coming each Thursday night. And then again, those student-to-student hangouts and then that virtual tour. So we're doing our best to kind of represent the school online as best we can. And as soon as we're able to kind of open up campus, we will, to be able to have our visitors come in. So yeah. Well, really, the next question, maybe more towards the Shacklefords, but Emma and Chris and Nate, you might have perspective just from your seats as well, is kind of how does the school Wheaton Academy partner with parents? We very much want it to be a partnership, where we don't say, okay, students are ours from 8 to 3, and then they're yours from 3 to 8. We really want kind of the truth of scripture and different values to be echoed really in both home and school and church. So I'd love to hear kind of your experience as parents, so we'll start there, of how you feel like the school partners with you.
One of the things that I really liked was about 5 years ago, as Corey Hockett was kind of getting more involved in the administration, I remember there was like a new kind of checklist for what things your kids can do. And it was a list of things that were empowering students to be adults. And it was about parents not doing things for kids and for kids to advocate for themselves. And I loved this checklist of things that Wheaton Academy was empowering kids to do. And it was the opposite of having parents helicopter and doing, kind of being overbearing. It was really about getting the kids to grow up. And I'm a teacher in a public school. And as I talk to my colleagues about what our kids need, resilience, just responsibility and all that, I did reference this list. And I felt like Wheaton Academy was ahead of the culture that's been developing right now for students and for parents, and I think it's really healthy. So I've been happy with that focus.
I also am grateful for the open communication. We get emails from teachers often giving highlights of the week, things that the students are working on, and I really appreciate that. But the number one thing I appreciate is that if my student is feeling overwhelmed or needs some help, I can confidently say, well, just talk to your teacher. Like, there's nothing, just advocate for yourself, because you're going to have to do that when you're an adult as well. And knowing that when my student writes their teacher, an email saying, I don't understand this, or I need some extra time because, I haven't been feeling well or whatever, knowing that teacher is going to respond in like a loving, compassionate way, is really helpful as a parent. Just to know that I can rely on another person to help my kid kind of navigate life without me telling them what to do.
Yeah,
So,
we've never really felt the need to communicate with their teachers directly, because we know that if our kid contacts their teacher with the right attitude and approach, that the response will be helpful, supportive, empowering. And so we've always been able to stay out of the fray and just counsel our kids to communicate with their adult teachers and to become adults as they do that.
mhm. And that's all we have to do is say, well, just email your teacher. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. So
That's great. That's great. Kind of prompt the process a little bit.
I also just appreciate, like, when I go on campus, how teachers are so happy to see you and so friendly, and the support staff in the offices. I walk in and I'm thinking, how do they know me? Like, I never really walk into school. I don't need to, but everyone knows, I'm Ellie, Simon, and Penny's mom, and they always are so happy and welcoming. So just like Emma feels welcomed and loved by, her teachers and her peers, as a parent, I feel the same way. It's really quite incredible.
It's great. It's awesome. How about Chris and Nate, from your perspective as teachers? How do you feel about that parent partnership?
Yeah, I can jump in with that. One thing that I'm very thankful for is the parents' willingness to work with the teachers and give us some insight that the students might not give us directly. And there have been times where I'll reach out to a student and say, everything's fine, everything's fine. But then I see homework being submitted at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's like, is everything really fine? And knowing that there's the open communication with the parents, that the parents want what's best for their students, we want what's best for the students. So having that open line of communication is so important.
Great. It's great. Thanks, Chris. Anything you want to add, Nate?
I would just say one of the kind of the unique things that we see is younger students, underclassmen, when it comes to parent-teacher student conferences, it's much more parent driven. And then by the time they get to be seniors, for example, Emma is a senior, and they get to conference time, and it's like, hey, Emma, I'm going to pick you because you're here in the call. When it comes to conference time, you're graduating, you're 18, you're going to university. So that growth in both communication and in ownership is really visible from freshman year all the way through. And I think it ties into the partnership and the launching, as you mentioned earlier, and the Shacklefords you have mentioned, the empowering them to be successful when they go to university or even beyond, as Trish Main says. So even that little sliver, just the parent-teacher-student conferences, I think reveals that as students progress through Wheaton Academy.
Yeah.
Great. It's great. Emma, anything you want to add about how you just feel like your family and school connects, or anything you want to contribute?
I just want to add that, like, I feel like it's a really good balance, because I am the type of student personally that I don't love my mom like, hey Emma, have you done your homework? Like, I'll get it done, I got it. But it's cool every once in a while my mom will be like, for example, I had a constitution test for Mr. Lima's class today, and my mom was like, I heard you got that coming up, like, how you doing with that? And so it's cool to be like, oh, I didn't know you knew about that, but like, my teachers are checking in with her while I'm getting it done. So there's definitely a balance between there, and I appreciate that.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think what I appreciate about kind of our culture is we really want to treat students like young adults and really treat them like how we want them to rise to those expectations. and really partner with parents who want the same thing. You know, they want their students to mature and grow and have it not be 4 years of babysitting, but really 4 years of empowering, because that's what's going to really help them thrive in the future. And that, you know, happens on a faith level, you know, for me, of like really helping students own their faith, you know, at academic level, just personal management, you know. And so I think in a lot of ways that's just the culture that Wheaton Academy just approaches student learning. And I think, like you said, they just respond well to that. I think students rise when you have those high expectations, and everyone's better for it, in my opinion. So, so good. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, if there are any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat box as we wrap up. But we had one question about the admissions process and placement tests in this kind of an unusual time. So applications are still open. We have just a few more spots in the freshman class. We are accepting transfer applications, but right now there is a wait pool scenario, but we are still opening up applications because you never really know what the next few months will bring. The application process is all online. So there's an application for parents to do with their student, and then there's references online where you just kind of email teachers through our portal. We ask for a copy of grades, both this year and last year's, as well as whatever the most recent standardized test score that you have, whether that's a MAP test or Terra Nova or PSAT or something. And then I've been able to conduct interviews still on Zoom, so it's not ideal, but it's working out just fine. So we encourage you to kind of go through that process. We'll put a link in the chat too of where you can find kind of the application process and the various steps. And then with placement tests, we don't do any admissions testing really before the admissions decision. We do placement tests typically after students enroll, so it's really not a part of the decision. But we've really paused all of those placement tests until recently, and I believe we're moving them to be online. Chris, is that right with the placement test?
That is correct. The option for an online placement test.
Great. So we're in the process these next couple of weeks of kind of putting our placement tests online and proctoring those with families over Zoom and things, because again, that test helps us determine what level English and math and science, even world language classes that students can go in. So we're very much still in that process of catching up our currently enrolled freshmen to get that done, but then also those who apply this month and into May. So we can link some of that information on our chat, just so you've got, again, those application pieces. So any other questions, again, you're welcome to chat and chime in here, but we want to be mindful of everybody's time. Any other closing thoughts that you guys have to kind of wish these prospective students well, or any advice you have for them?
I will share some advice, I guess. When I think about incoming freshmen, I think about like what I wish I knew / what helped me. I think it's just this willingness piece. At Wheaton Academy, I feel like there's so many we already talked about the opportunities that are like at your fingertips, but you got to be willing to like pursue those teachers to help you, and to like try new things, like join a club or join a sport. So I'd definitely say be willing to try. I feel like we've got the launching piece too. That's when you'll be launched into your desires and like you'll figure that out. And that's a cool piece of Wheaton Academy.
Great. Thanks, Emma. Thank you. Well, any other closing thoughts? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when our first daughter was considering going there, for us, a big question was financial. And it's weird for me to think now that we have 3 kids going through and we're getting closer to being done, and that all of this could have hinged on a couple $1,000s back in 2012, you know, or it's just like, to me, I can't believe that something could have stopped us, but I'm really glad that it worked out for us, and I'm really glad that we've received financial aid and that we've been able to make some sacrifices to make it happen, because it's been really a valuable resource for our whole family.
Yeah,
So,
it's definitely an investment, and thankfully our kids have seen that it's been an investment that they've benefited from. So yeah, I completely agree with Nathan on that.
Great. Thanks. Thank you for that. I love it. I love it. Well, I do want to thank everyone. Thank you guys for joining the conversation, and thank you to our attendees for coming. Just a few little wrap-up thoughts. You can save the chat if you'd like. I know a couple links and things have come through. So if you go to File on your GoToMeeting option and click Save Chat, that'll download for you. Also, feel free to link those resources. We can send those to you as well, but the Ready, Set, Go books, which we've mentioned a few times, the application process is laid out in one of the handouts, and then also just our school philosophy and expectations are listed there. Just again, a little bit more about that parent-student partnership with the school. Feel free to reach out to our email is admissions@wheatonacademy.org. If there's like, oh, as soon as the chat ends, like one more question. So if there's anything else that comes up, feel free to send that through. We'd be happy to reach out to you tonight or even tomorrow. And we've got future Q&As happening. So this was kind of our intro, Wheaton Academy 101, but we've got 4 more coming up. So if you want to join us in future conversations, feel free to register for those, and we'll send you that GoToMeeting link. And if, again, you can't even join live, the recording will come to your email. So, and then last thing for those of you who are 7th graders, even 6th graders who are here tonight, thanks for joining us. I hope this was helpful as you kind of think through a very future high school decision. You're welcome to kind of look through our application and things, but we open up kind of our future classes for our rising 8th graders. Those applications open in the fall, typically kind of mid-September is when we open up applications for kind of next year's process. So hopefully that's helpful. So thank you again for joining us again, Emma, Chris, Nate, Shackelford. Thank you so much for your time. And happy birthday, Nathan, again, for joining us. And everyone else, thanks again for joining us. Have a wonderful night, and we look forward to talking with you more in the future. Thanks again.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.